Alrighty folks, and welcome to the Chronicler podcast channel. Episode 12, Daoism. So firstly, I would like to say a really big sorry for the lack of episodes as of late. But it was coming to exam time in my school and here in China, so yeah, I was far too busy. Far too busy to even think about getting this done, alongside preparing study plans for the students for their exams and helping them revise and stuff. It was just a bit of a mess. But I would say this, I hope everyone enjoyed their Christmas over the holidays, and I hope everyone had a fantastic new year. I know 2020 wasn't the best of years for anybody really, so hopefully, looking forward to 2021, we can start to enjoy ourselves more. Now, the good news is that now that exam time's over, and I have a month's break coming up, it's the Chinese New Year, so you get a month off of school, which means I have more time for podcasting. So moving forward, I'm hoping, and I really hope that this can come true, that this can continue on a weekly basis. But from now on, I'm going to try and be more consistent, and especially with the messaging as well. So if I say I can't do it next week, or if I know I can't do it next week, then I'll be letting people know on the podcast itself, as well as on my Facebook page, my Twitter page, and my Instagram page, just to be sure everyone knows that there won't be an episode the next week, so then that way people aren't feeling disappointed when nothing turns up. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say from now on. Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. A classic phrase which originates with Daoism. So the first thing I better talk about is, where did Daoism come from? And who thought of it? The answer to both of these questions is, well, nobody really knows for sure. Daoism is credited to a man named Lao Tzu, which in Chinese means old master. Apparently, he even taught Confucius himself. But again, this is just a matter of speculation. The book where Daoism's origins can be found is called the Dao De Jing, which literally means finding the path. Just remember that Dao in Chinese means the path, or it could be translated to the way. So Daoism is similar to Confucianism in this sense. It is considering following the right path. The difference is that both religions or philosophies see a different path to follow. What I find interesting is that the oldest script found of the Dao De Jing was found inside the tomb of Ma Wangdui. Ma Wangdui is an archaeological site that was found in the 1960s, around that time, and it is close to modern-day Changsha, which is inside Henan province. The tomb belongs to a particularly high-ranking official of the time. We do not know, but the time of the text itself is regarded to have been written at around the 3rd century BC, according to Philip J. Ivanhoe, who wrote the Dao De Jing of Lao Tzu in 2003. However, do not be mistaken, this isn't the original text. This is the text in its present form. There are older originals, I guess, which go back even farther than that, right around the time of the spring and autumn period. So yeah, Lao Tzu. Even if he existed, he would have been around at the same time as Confucius, or at least the same time period. Now that we have gotten the origins out of the way, it's time to move on with what the philosophy and the religion is all about. Daoism, as you may have guessed, has a lot to do with the Tao, the path. But for Taoists, Daoism simply talks about the Tao as a universal force. It was created by itself, and it's created the universe today. So I guess the best way to compare this would be the Big Bang Theory, I guess. The first line of the document Dao De Jing actually says that it is impossible for human beings to even begin to comprehend or understand the Tao, as it is so complex. So I guess what it means is humans shouldn't even bother trying to find, like when they split atoms in half, there's no point in trying to split the remnants in half and like keep going to try and find the building blocks of life, or even if people can examine DNA, then what's the point in going even further? Because we'll never fully understand the Tao. This is the point that I'm trying to get across. Now, this doesn't mean, however, that the patterns cannot be understood. And this is called Li. The Li is the breadcrumbs that Tao leaves behind. For example, the markings on wood or the patterns on rocks. Li can also represent the natural, yet random, perfect orders of nature. And again, for example, think of the way rivers flow, or the way tides come in and out, or even weather patterns. Basically, by observing Li, we can see how the Tao operates. We can't see why or anything, but at least we can see the results of the Tao, which is something. Daoism also looks to nature as ever-changing, and as many cycles all happening at once. Think of the cycle of life, for example. The earth gives birth to plants, trees, or animals. They grow, then they wither, then they return to earth, and the cycle repeats itself. Further to this, a fundamental element for Daoism is Wu Wei, which literally means doing nothing, or not doing, or not acting. Lao Tzu does mention Wei Wu Wei, which would mean doing the non-doing. I'll let your perspective try to get your head around that. My perspective of this is that you try your best to not do anything. That's my perspective. Or another way to look at it is that this would be don't force anything. So if society pressures you into doing something, and if you don't want to do it, don't force yourself to do it, because you're not following the Tao. You're not following your natural way. And again, another example could be with a river, so like, just go with the flow. That's what Daoism's about. You go with the flow of nature. You let nature take its course. So for example, if you're in a river, would you swim upstream or downstream? You're going to swim downstream because the Tao is making the river go downstream. So why try and fight the Tao and go upstream? Go with the flow, go with the Tao. Daoism is a lot more concerned with nature and natural elements within the universe. Daoism, unlike Confucianism, feels that humans are but a mere speck on the universe, and the world that we live on, Mother Nature, is the ultimate authority in the world. A Taoist scholar would look at the world and see the beauty in Mother Nature, not what humans create. So let me paint a picture for you. You're in a small village. You have you, your neighbours, and their neighbours. You wake up on a crisp spring morning and walk outside. Breathe in the fresh air and look around you. You have a lake just beside your home, and you can look at the mountains, ranges, as far as the eye can see. You can also see men fishing in the lake and the women preparing food from the winter harvests. You can hear the birds chirping on the trees, or even on the roof of your basic, yet comfortable home. You decide to join the men and go fishing, and later you explore the Mother Nature that surrounds you. Because you know that old saying? Every 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step. But you do not do any harm to Mother Nature. And why should you? It provides for you, your family, and your village. This picture that I painted is the way a true Taoist scholar wants to live his or her life, surrounded by nature and not interrupting the processes of the Tao. That's why when you see Taoist-inspired art, you see huge paintings of mountains and forests and waterfalls, and then you just see that one guy who would look like a pixel on a modern-day computer. Or even human settlements for that matter. They're always tiny in comparison to the natural environment that surrounds it. This kind of thinking inspired artists in China all the way up to the present day, and in particular the Song dynasty, which I will touch on in a future podcast. But this brings me up to my next point. Was the Tao Te Ching the only Taoist text written? Now the answer is an incredible no. There is another famous Taoist text outside the Tao Te Ching, which is called the Zhuangzi. And the author was, you guessed it, Zhuangzi. Got some serious narcissistic vibes if you name a book after yourself. But to be fair to the guy, he was actually really nice to everyone around him. So I suppose I could let him off. The two are similar in their explanations of Daoism. The only difference is that the Tao Te Ching focuses on rulers and how they should rule, whilst Zhuangzi focuses on how Daoism can benefit regular people. Despite these being the two most famous books, there are literally thousands of books on Daoism and different perspectives on how to follow the Tao. Taoist authors look to nature to solve problems as well, such as looking for medicinal herbs to be one example, but these Taoist texts have a whole load of information inside them, such as warding off demons and how to meditate and stuff like that. And I think I need to mention this now. The Tao Te Ching is the most translated text after the Bible. So there you go. Taoism captures the interests of millions of people worldwide. Now, let's move on to a concept that everyone recognises well in the West, and which also originates with Daoism. The concept of yin and yang. Now, yin and yang are polar opposites, but they are inseparable. Yin is femininity, the moon, night, chaos, and the unknown, whereas yang is masculinity, the sun, daytime, peaceful, and the known. Basically, one cannot live without the other. And this is a good thing, as it brings balance to natural processes and to the universe as a whole. I suppose the most simple analogy would be to think of it like this. The sun comes up, it's daytime. The sun goes down, it's nighttime. As nighttime comes into being, the moon goes up. As the moon goes down, it's daytime again. And the cycle will repeat itself forever. Now, to wrap up, I'm going to focus on one more element of Daoism. Just because this is getting a bit long now, and this is a huge information overload. And the thing is, I'm only covering the very basics of Daoism. There's thousands of other things that I could have said, but I don't think I should go into it. Now, the next thing is the concept of qi. So what is qi? Literally, it means air, but for Daoism, it's more complicated than that, obviously. So qi is everything that makes nature function. So think of oxygen or water, and all of the tiny molecules that make these things exist. That's qi. A more simple way of saying it is that it's energy. So qi is your energy. If you've got good qi, you give good vibes. If you've got bad qi, you give off bad vibes. That's what I'm going for. Now qi, like I've just already kind of touched on, is also inside humans. It is the stuff that flows through your body. So like blood, for example. If qi is flowing, you're alive. And if it stops, well, you're dead. And this flow isn't only on Earth, but it's in heaven too. According to Taoists, Earth and heaven are mere reflections of each other. So if these things happen on Earth, then it is because they happen on heaven as well. This is where the idea that heaven has a centralised bureaucracy in Chinese popular culture comes from. It comes from Daoism. Ever heard of the tale of the journey to the West? How the Monkey King combats many different gods and angers the Jade Emperor? The Jade Emperor comes from Taoist thought, not Buddhist thought. Which is rather strange because the story is about how the Monkey King escorts a Buddhist monk west, hence the name. But this is the thing with Chinese culture which makes it rather interesting, because the three biggest religions inside China are Buddhism, Daoism, and Confucianism. But rather than fighting each other, the three kind of managed to merge together and coexist peacefully. So like Chinese people would adapt concepts of Daoism and then concepts of Confucianism and concepts of Buddhism and incorporate it into their lives, rather than, what the West would do is say, my way is right, I'm going to kill you because you're wrong. It didn't kind of work like that, which is rather remarkable. Now, I'm going to leave it there, so that is a wrap for this episode. But before I go, I just want to ask a question. What do you think about Daoism? Is it a cool religion, or is it just too complicated to even begin to comprehend? And bear in mind now that this podcast barely scratches the surface of Daoism as a whole. Now, next week, I'm going to take a look into the third most influential kind of thinking in terms of Chinese politics, especially during this time and then during the imperial era anyway, and that is legalism. So I hope that you tune in next week to hear more about legalism and how it operates. So that's it from me, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye for now.